Well, one of the things you've done now and that we're here to talk about is part of the Ultimate Major League Baseball series. You've written it on the Detroit Tigers, Michigan's favorite sports team. Tell us how this came about.
Well, I started working in the media while I was in the military, radio, newspapers, and TV, wherever I was stationed. And after I got out, I joined a paper full time. And what I realized is when I'm on a morning deadline to get my articles in the newspaper that day, anything I did on the Tigers, I'd have to go to a number of sources. And that just makes the task even more difficult. And that's when I realized that there needed to be a source of information where it's all in one location.
Well, this really is the ultimate statistics guide. Everything you can think about is in this book, which is over 500 pages. I don't know where it really topped out at, but tell us what you've crammed into this tome on the Detroit Tigers.
Well, the start out initially was going to be a review of each of the seasons, 1901 through 2020. But as the book evolved through the years, that is in there, and you see the history starting from 1901. Each of those page reviews starts out with it's laid out in decade format. And so at the beginning of each decade, there's a page review for the decade. So there's an all-decade team, all-decade pitching staff, a player of the decade, and a pitcher of the decade. And then the book goes into the statistical part of it, where you have the yearly leaders, the career leaders, the decade leaders, for over 100 stats for offense and 50 for pitching.
Well, as I went through this, I mean, it just brought back all kinds of memories, names that of players that you heard on radio or you saw on TV. Maybe you got to go to Tiger Stadium and now Comerica Park. But this is really a treasure trove of statistics. How'd you keep it all straight?
Well, at one point it was in about 7 different files, and then a couple of years ago I put everything together in a book format, page numbered it, all that, and then but you pretty much I just had to take it one section at a time. But as you go through there, it has the statistics that we were familiar with growing up, like home runs and stolen bases and batting average, to the new age statistics today they call sabermetrics, which evaluate those raw statistics for the on-field performance.
Yeah, that was some stuff I know people really get into. That was a lot more than I understood. So tell us a little bit more about some of the statistical models that are in here that may be a little bit different than most people think about. You have most effective hitters through the decades. It's sort of an interesting way to look at it. Tell us some more.
Yes, there's people have come up with different ways through the years to compare players of different eras, players from the same teams, players from different decades. I developed one that uses individual statistics that you can come up with the most effective hitter and also a most effective pitcher. And so that data that's used in that determination allowed me to go back and determine the first team, second team, all the way through the fifth team all time, the top 150 Tigers of all time, and then the top 50 starters and top 50 relievers. So you can see where your Tiger shakes out as far as your favorite Tiger.
Well, I think this book will either help solve or maybe start more arguments over a couple of beers and who's the best Tiger hitter or Tiger pitcher or, of all time or during a certain decade. So I think you've added some fuel to the fire. That was probably the intent.
Well, it sure is, because everybody has their favorite Tigers, and with over 1,800 through the years, for the 120 years they've played, everyone has their favorites, and everyone can present their case for why their player is the best. And so it's interesting because the Tigers are a storied franchise. So when you look at players like Ty Cobb and Hank Greenberg and Hal Newhouser, Charlie Gehringer, all the way up through today, Miguel Cabrera, J.D. Martinez, and the recent Tigers. And then, of course, the 60s and the 70s was just a special time for Tiger fans because you had a core of players like Horton, Freehand, Northrup, Kaline, Lolich, that they just were together for a long time.
Well, those are all storied names that ought to ring true with anybody in the listening area. And you talk in the book about various Tiger owners and executives and managers and coaches, even broadcasters get their due. So, that's great. I think it brings home for everybody kind of, and also helps those of us whose memory may be fading and say, well, I remember it was this year and somebody else is saying it's another year. I'm going to be able to sort it out now with this. So you've really added to the library of Detroit Tiger knowledge.
Like what you heard? Listen to this full episode and more on the Apple Podcasts app, Blog Talk Radio, Google Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. And now streaming on Amazon Music, Audible, and Spotify.